Hello, my name is Qiana Gabriel. I am the Interim Engineering Supervisor for the Traffic Division. This evening, we will be discussing a traffic calming plan for Glenmore Avenue between Hartford Road and Waltham. So on the agenda, we're going to discuss the resident concerns, a proposed solution, discuss what a chicane is, and provide a project overview, and then question and answers. So when the speed humps were installed, we received concerns from residents who have some mobility challenges that it's difficult to transverse the road as well as the sidewalk with the speed hump installation. The ADA division was contacted and they are developing a long-term strategy for sidewalk needs in this community. So the traffic division has taken on the task to try to find some other treatments to maintain low speeds along this corridor. So the proposed solution is to remove the existing speed humps and install chicane traffic calming designs. So what is a chicane? A chicane is a road design feature used to slow down traffic and improve safety by creating a series of narrow or shifts along the roadway. The overall goal of this design is to reduce vehicle speeds by forcing drivers to navigate through these curves rather than driving in a straight line. In comparison to the speed humps, it wouldn't be speeding in between these humps. You would have to navigate through these curves and reduce your speeds. So this creates a safer environment for pedestrians. It improves ADA and emergency access, and overall can slow traffic down along the corridor. So now we're going to discuss the proposed design. So currently there's two lanes, two travel lanes in each direction with parking on the north side of the roadway. The chicanes will maintain a single lane in each direction and parking will alternate from one side of the road um, as the shifts occur. So yes, so the parking will alternate from each side of the block. So now we're going to get into the actual design. So between Hartford Road and Edna, it's a very narrow roadway. It shows 9-foot travel lanes and 8-foot parking. And this is the first shift that residents would encounter traveling east. So this shift is 90 feet, I'm sorry, 60 feet. These shifts along this corridor would range between 50 and 55. This one's just a little bit larger just because of how narrow the travel lanes are. So I believe that traffic will already be traveling a little bit slower because it's a little bit more confined as it moves through and approaches Edna. So when we get to Edna, we stop the parking where the existing daylighting is. We're going to install crosswalks, continental crosswalks at Edna with new stop bars. Moving towards Burgess, there's a shift just before Eunice Avenue. That's a 55-foot shift, and we're alternating parking on each side of this block between Edna and Burgess. There's 7-foot parking and 10-foot travel lanes in this section. So the roadway is starting to get a little bit wider as we're traveling east. At Burgess, there's going to be continental crosswalks, stop bars, improvements. So between Burgess and Sefton, there is no shift. This section just doesn't have a shift in it. So all the parking is on the north side of the screen. It's 7-foot parking, and the travel lanes will vary between 9 and 10 feet. Um, I will say that these plans are about 95%. They're not final plans. There's a bit of shifting that I still want to do with the travel lane widths. And as we move further east, as the roadway gets wider, there's going to be a buffer that's introduced just because there's so much roadway that we want to maintain the narrow travel lanes to keep speeds low, while also it can provide parking protection for residents. So here we have Sefton between Glen Oak, and there's a small shift because this is a short block of 50 feet, but we're still able to maintain some parking between these segments and allow this shift to happen. So then Glen Oak to Bertram, there's no shift. But as we move from Bertram to Carter, the roadway gets very wide. So we have another shift there at Theodore Avenue. This shift is going to be moved a little bit further west so that it won't be at the same location as Theodore Avenue. We don't want the shift where there's the minor street crossing, so we're going to just do a little adjustments there. We have the continental crosswalks at each intersection, and the new stop bars. Moving towards Carter to Eastern, and then Eastern to Mayor, there's no shift. Between Eastern and Mayor, this is about, it's less than 300 feet. I just decided not to do the shift in this section, but we're going to do the shift a little bit further east. Here we have is a 3-foot buffer. It ranges between 2 and 3-foot buffer. There's 8-foot parking, and then there's 10 to 10.5-foot travel lanes. These lane widths may be reduced a little bit more and added to the buffer as I move towards the final design. So between Mayor and Alta, there's the shift. There's going to be between Alta and Walther. What's not shown here is Hilltop Avenue. We are going to either put a shift east or west of Hilltop. So this segment, we will add another shift that's just not shown here, but it will be there for the final design. So as you can see here, there's 8-foot parking, it's 2.5-foot buffer, and then 10.5-foot travel lanes. We could definitely reduce that down with the shift so we can further slow traffic down coming from Walther or trying to make the light to get to Walther. So the goal is once the speed humps are removed, the chicanes will be installed immediately, weather permitting. We are going to have a comment period for everyone to vote or to leave comments, not to vote, to leave comments of these designs or any concerns that they may have until December 3rd. So please use the email for Shaquetta Wallace, the dot.engagement@baltimorecity.gov, and use the subject Glenmore Avenue if you have any additional questions. There will be a survey and a link to leave comments. And that concludes the presentation. So there was a question in the chat, will all the crosswalks have stop signs now? If there's no existing stop or always stop present, no, we're not introducing new always stops. We're going to maintain what's existing, but we are going to put crosswalks at the crossings.
I believe it's working. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yes, ma'am. I was curious what, if any, outreach was done with the community regarding the design. I'm the president of Hamilton Hills. The project exists in what is now Hamilton, formerly Glenham Belhar, and I was getting communications from DOT rather than the president of Hamilton, who I believe is also on your meeting here. So I'm just curious what outreach, if any, was done.
I would need to refer to Clea, my colleague, chief of traffic. Um, I was kind of brought in from the design standpoint. I'm not 100% sure on the outreach. I can give her a moment to put something in the chat.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Hello, this is Shaquetta Wallace, your DOT liaison for the third district. This was sent out via email. It was sent to the schools as well as to the presidents of the community organizations, as well as to the Hamilton Main Street. And I'm sorry, I'm not looking at the list right now. I'm going off the top of my head. But yes, we tried to do outreach because this meeting was first sent out on November the 7th, and it was also put out on social media as well for DOT.
And this is Clea Baumhofer here. I'll just speak to, the reason that we are having this meeting tonight is that we recognize there has not been wide outreach to date. We've been developing these plans and taking a look at this area. This is a high priority area due to some of the accessibility concerns with the speed humps and the need to replace them with another effective strategy. So that is exactly the purpose of this meeting tonight. So I acknowledge that fact.
Understood. Thank you. The reason I asked, as I said, was my understanding was Hamilton had not gotten the information, but Hamilton Hills had. And I know that most people are not going to be happy no matter what project is done. Somebody's going to have a gripe about it. I just wanted to make sure everyone had the chance to have their input if they so desired. But thank you.
There's a question in the chat. Is there research on the fact that chicanes slow traffic down? Currently, people just speed between the speed bumps and then still run the stop signs. So yes, this is coming from ITE, the National Transportation of Engineers. Also, SHA supports chicane designs. There is lots of material on research that has been done on these designs. It slows traffic down more effectively than the speed humps because, like you said, they could be speeding in between. Forcing a vehicle to move off of track will continue to slow folks down throughout a corridor versus just slowing down for certain spots and not recognizing stop signs is a different issue, but at least the speeding between the speed humps would be alleviated by having to traverse through the shifts and the curves.
So we have a question in the room.
Okay, is it going to be the same amount of speed humps that are on there now, or are you going to add more or take away some?
We're going to remove all of the speed humps and replace them with the shifting chicane design.
But are you going to have the same amount that are there now?
Are you saying like the shift
Like
would
there's
be
like 10 speed humps on the road. Are you going to keep the 10 chicanes, or are you going to like reduce them down to like 6?
so the shifting isn't directly correlated with the placement of the speed humps. The shifting is looking at the driveway placement, the minor street crossings, and the curvature of the road. So the shifts themselves don't match to the number of speed humps. So this is independent of the speed hump design.
So you're saying between some of the speed humps and the shifting, that's gonna be enough to slow the people down?
So the shifting alone should slow folks down because we're going to remove the speed humps.
Okay. Okay.
You're gonna ask.
Well, I think we should do that offline.
So there's another question. Will all of the stop signs still remain as they are once the chicane is installed? Yes. All of the all-way stops that are existing will remain, and the design is based around that. Every intersection, it should still be straight. We're not going to shift through any intersections, and it should still come to a complete stop. So, for example, there's a shift between Sefton and Glen Oak, but there will still be the all-way stops here at these two intersections.
So, Qiana, currently no more questions in the room. Councilman, any questions?
I don't have any questions. I'm just really happy to see this design and that we're doing this. I think it's really important that we try new things. You know, traffic calming, as DOT has said many times, is like the highest volume request, you know, for street improvements that the department gets. And for a long time, and still in many people's view, like, traffic calming is synonymous only with, can you put a speed hump on my street? And we know that speed humps are not only not a one size fits all solution, but also very often not the best approach. And on a street like this, we have a really great opportunity to try something new. We really haven't done this elsewhere in the city. And I'm really happy to see DOT undertake to do something new here. And I think that, you know, I'm very hopeful it's going to be successful. And I'm glad to have it moving forward. Thanks.
There's a Taylor M. I'm going to see if I can get you off of mute to ask your question.
Taylor.
Right here. Right here. You can let them know that they've been unmuted. Connor also has his hand raised. Current President Hamilton.
Thank you. I was able to unmute myself. This is Taylor McConaughey. I live on Glenmore, and I'm glad you mentioned accessibility in this meeting. There's several neighbors that do use wheelchairs in our neighborhood, and when the speed humps went in, and I know you've heard this part of it, when the speed humps were put in place, some of those neighbors that used to use their wheelchair to go down the side of the street were forced to go to the center of the street. With the design of the chicanes, I still feel like they might end up having to cross the street back and forth a couple of times as they go from they live around the 3600 block of Glenmore. I'm concerned they're going to have to cross the street back and forth to avoid the cars, and will end up in the travel lane anyway. And my concern is not that they're in the middle of the street. It's that they don't really have much other choice. The sidewalks are not navigable. There were curb cuts done on the corner of, I think that's Bertram and and Glenmore, but they don't go. The curb cuts go to nowhere. They dead end on, like, in one direction. There's a pole that would force them into the grass. On other sections of the blocks, there's humps in the sidewalk. So really, the street's the option. And with chicanes, they're gonna have to follow the chicanes as well.
Yes, unfortunately, it is a solution for a temporary solution. We are trying to work with ADA so that they can come up with another plan, but with them in the roadway, we still want to make sure that cars are traveling at a slower speed.
Yeah.
So instead of it being, pretty straight, that shifting should slow them down and make it a little bit safer for them to traverse. And then they wouldn't necessarily have to if they use the parking lane and it's open, and they could feel like they have a little bit more protection when they're on the parking lane side versus on the travel lane side. So I think there are benefits to it, but we definitely did not want to continue the unsafe situation with the speed humps.
Yeah, and I have one other question, if I may. Is this just going to be indicated by stripes in the road, or are there gonna be those things that a lot of people complain about?
So there will be flex post only at the shift. So it's to give you that visual cue in the roadway that something's in the road, I need to slow down and to shift. So the pavement markings alone can't give you that visual effect. So there will be the ones just at the shift sections.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. And then there was Connor. I believe he has his hand up next.
Hey there. I think you guys can hear me now, yeah?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. First off, thank you guys for doing this. As a couple folks have noted, this is, I think it's important, but it's also, there's never an easy solution that makes everyone happy. So it's not lost on me that this is you're between a rock and a hard place. I do kind of echo Taylor's comments that this feels like a solution to the wrong problem, in the sense that we're fixing an issue that is kind of caused by ADA complications with the sidewalks, and instead of fixing the sidewalks, which I realize is a much bigger undertaking, we're fixing the road. So I think I'll just leave that there for what it is. I guess I had a couple things and a couple thoughts. One, Lord, was the idea of having speed humps and the chicanes explored. And I asked that from a perspective of, there's a couple blocks that you showed that, and actually this might be one of them, it's hard to read the yellow writing, where there are not stop signs between the blocks, and there is no shift being made, which would lead to, and there are speed humps currently. So it would actually be a removal, like a net negative for that block of traffic calming. So I was wondering, like, if there are instances where there are blocks without shifts where there are current speed humps, if you had explored the idea of leaving the speed humps.
So no, we wanted to try to do this as a holistic plan and not do a combination, because we also didn't want to restrict folks to only being in one section. If we want to make sure that everyone can get to either side of this project. But to your point of intersections that may not have an always stop, that is something that we can still look into. We can see if it's warranted as we do observations for the chicane design. If we see that if it's warranted at these locations, then we can explore getting all stop signs installed. But we definitely need to observe and see the need for it before we can move forward. But we can definitely put it on our list for observations.
Cool. Thank you. Quick other question was, you mentioned the flex posts which is one of my questions, at the shift which makes a ton of sense. Is that the only, I guess, is that the only new addition to mark the chicane and shift in addition to the ground kind of lane markings? Like, as in, I guess what I'm getting at is like, frankly, I didn't know what a chicane was, so I was sitting here Googling it while you're speaking. And there's instances where it looks like they maybe like pour a concrete, almost like a bump out. So there's a more obvious with like either markers or signs, which obviously is more of a detriment. And I ask that only because obviously you're far less willing to drive into a curb than you are to maybe knock one of the flex posts. And I think in instances where there is high speed or folks aren't necessarily paying attention, I know like down on Hartford, on the bridge over Herring Run Park, like some of those flex posts are like knocked over regularly. So my concern would be these flex posts getting knocked over, whether it be by a vehicle or by somebody just kicking it as they go by or what have you, and then actually resulting in an additional or extra or net new 311 requests to have these flex posts come fixed on a regular basis. So I wasn't sure if there are, I'll come back to my original question. I wasn't sure if there are any other markings or signals to show the chicane to kind of hopefully drive the slowdown.
So there are chicane designs that are hardscaped with the concrete curb bump outs. I think that for finding a solution for our issue right now would be pavement markings. If we feel like this is working, we can definitely try to see if we can upgrade this design in the future, but that would definitely have to be some type of capital improvement project where we would install like hardscape bump outs. But for this task and to address these immediate issues, it would just be pavement markings and flex post. Oh, you muted yourself again.
Thank you. Sorry, and last question. I live on Glenmore, so I'm obviously very invested. And it just completely left my head. Oh, you mentioned testing. And obviously, I completely agree with Councilman Dorsey that I think it's good that there are instances where we're trying to not just slap down asphalt and hope people slow down. So I think this is a great test. I'm wondering what the window of testing is. So if you hear resident feedback after the chicanes are put in, that people are flying through them or there's increased, I guess one of my things, and I'll just put this out there as a comment, is increased traffic accidents, whether somebody is new to the chicane or there's a bunch of traffic, obviously, between Hartford and Walther. Late night traffic, my concern would be somebody hits a parked car that might be parked at the end of the parking lane. So should there be negative impacts, I guess, what does the testing window look like where you guys are evaluating that and determine whether or not the chicane worked and whether or not to put speed humps back down? I guess I'm just curious if there's a time window.
Yeah, I can't say that it's a defined window. It's more of a let's just watch and see how it's going. I don't want to put a time frame on it because there's different seasons, school seasons, holiday seasons, different road work that may be going on in the area. It could be an influx and cut throughs. But I think that by having the PVMS signs before we install this, that something's coming, something new is coming. The outreach with your communities and all the other communities around it, that something new in this area is going on. Appropriate signage to show that there's some type of shifting along this roadway. Now, we don't want to over clutter the road with signage because sometimes that's when folks start ignoring things, but we definitely want to make sure that we have the proper outreach, that something's coming, and have the proper signage out here. I think that once people kind of get used to having to do these shifts, you may start seeing less people cutting through your neighborhood because it'll be more of a hassle to do this shifting and they'll pick somewhere else to go, which is great too, because you don't want just cut through traffic. If this is just your neighborhood folks and you feel a little bit safer because these are the same folks that'll walk up and down your street. So if that deters people from using this route, that'd be great. It'll be less traffic on this corridor, but we definitely want to make it uncomfortable for the users to not feel like they're going to just fly through. So I really am, I'm confident that this design can slow folks down just as effectively as a speed hump. And I think that the shifting overall can slow traffic down along the entire corridor.
Yeah. Well, great. Like I said, I appreciate the time that you all are making, and thanks for answering the questions. Excited to see what comes of it.
Thank you. I believe there was one more question in the chat. I believe Eric, remind me of our time for this meeting, but I can't find.
Yeah, it's 6:45 right now, so we're good on time.
Oh, okay. I'm used to Teams. I apologize. I'm trying to find where my chat went. There's a question.
There's basically a daylighting question in the chat.
Yes. So there is a lot of daylighting signs existing out there. Is it that you feel that it's not enough daylighting and that you would rather see more? I mean, with the shifting, there won't be any traffic on those corners, so that it could alleviate some of the conflicting movements. But is there any specific street, or is this just a general gut check that you would like us to take to look at the existing no stopping signs at each crossing? Which I just can put on my list to do and just verify that the signs are appropriate and where they need to be. Okay. So yes, so you on Burgess, yeah, we will look into the existing signs and making sure that we can we can add some hatching so that we don't encourage the parking, like similar here at Sefton. If you're saying that if someone parks here, it will be difficult turning off of this side street, then we could add some extra hatching here. I can do that research and make sure it's incorporated into our final design. You're welcome.
I'm going to selfishly, sorry, last thing. Selfishly, I live at the very Walther end of Glenmore. And you said that you were considering adding a chicane at that end where there's not a stop sign between Alta.
At Hillside.
Yeah, between Alta on the left here and Glenmore, and I'm sorry, Walther. People come up over the hill because the hill kind of apexes at Alta, and they see that the light is green at Walther and Glenmore, and they just fly. That's just a anecdotal piece of feedback if you were considering adding a chicane there, or some kind of marker, or even just signage saying curves ahead or something along those lines. But that little stretch, it may not be long, but people either come across Walther or are going towards Walther and kind of slam the gas.
Understood. So, okay, I will definitely make sure that there's going to be a shift on either the east or the west side of Hilltop.
Thank you.
No, thank you. This is great feedback. This is exactly what we need to make sure we button up this design.
Go ahead and ask your question.
Oh, no, I was just asking her to describe exactly what this was. The yellow lines, how I thought the chicanes were actually gonna be like something in the roadway, like coming out on the corners in the roadway, but they're not. The shift in the thing are the chicanes. The shift in the road itself will be the chicanes. That's what I
Correct.
was trying to get clarified. I was misunderstood. So the speed humps are coming off altogether when you put these in.
Correct. Yep, that's correct.
I'm for it.
Okay. Yeah, and this is Clea again, folks, and I'll just say we will be having just a formal comment period, collecting more feedback following this meeting, just to inform the final tweaks to the design, and that will run through Monday, December 3rd.
Where can folks make
dot.engagement@baltimorecity.gov. Eric, can you put that in the chat, please?
Oh, I have the wrong email up.
Okay,
Okay,
this
let
is
me
a
take that
different
slide
email,
off.
actually, which may be the old email.
We will make sure that we get this posted online as well, the recording, and we will also put the corrected email in.
Okay, yeah, Eric did just put it in. Okay, so the dot.engagement@baltimorecity.gov is the correct email in the chat here. So thanks, everybody.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all for your time. Thank you for your feedback, and we look forward to hearing more of your feedback once the comment
And
period is
Eric
over.
is also placing in the chat a request if anyone would like to take our Title VI Public Involvement Survey. We would love for you all to do that. Oh, Mr. Fowler, you have your hand up, sorry.
My apologies. I'm also not a WebEx guy. I must have done it by mistake.
Mr. Fowler, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yeah, Shaquetta, he said it was a mistake.
I'm still getting the request, Miss Wallace. I'm not sure if you heard me or the your coworker there, but yes, it was a mistake. I do appreciate you recognizing it, though.
All right, thank you. No problem.
Okay, Shaquetta was talking about some public engagement surveys in our chat. Shaquetta, did you want to continue your statement?
Oh, I was just mentioning that Eric has put the Title VI Public Involvement Survey in the chat. And thank you everyone for coming out tonight. And we appreciate all of the feedback that we are expecting to come. Thank you everyone and have a great evening.
Thank you.